just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing and wrapped a towel round his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped round him. The account of Jesus washing his disciples' feet has become a beautiful and poignant moment in the last hours of Jesus' life before the cross for many Christians throughout the centuries. Originally, of course, it would have been nothing of the sort. It was an embarrassing, undignified and base thing to do. In fact, shameful for anyone of any position of respect in society. Jesus had such an extraordinary way of upsetting the usual order of things. He was deeply uncomfortable. But it is in the way that John frames this act that it achieves a kind of scandal of jaw-dropping proportions. We see that firstly in verse 1. Jesus knew his hour had come to depart this world. So the impression it would have left on the disciples is immense. And Jesus knew it is clearly significant. The last memories of loved ones often leave the greatest impression. And secondly, this act was in light of the profound and expansive love that Jesus had for his own that were in the world. He loved them to the very end. This is what love looks like. And then following the declaration by John of Christ's great love, comes reference to the devil's temptation of Judas Iscariot to betray Jesus. We're thrown back in that moment to the temptation of Adam and Eve in the garden, to which they would succumb, and thus unraveling all human history. It is this betrayal that bookmarks the foot washing. In other words, it's in the midst of betrayal that Jesus performs this astonishing act. But there is one more thing that John points to before he calls action in his narrative. He lets us know that Jesus knew that he had been given all things. All things had been given into his hand. He had power at his fingertips. And that his personhood was bound up inseparably with the maker of all things, the source of all existence. It's as though the entire history of humanity's betrayal of their creator, the turning away to go their own way, and the suffering and angst and pain and tragedy that's caused down through the ages, that all of that is held in the frame in this moment, as though it's a picture hanging on the wall of the upper room. So what does power do in that moment? Even power that is just. We have a pretty good idea of what power in this world would do when faced with the possibility of righting perceived past wrongs. But Jesus, with all of this in mind, and only ever doing what he sees his Father doing, strips off his outer garments, ties a towel round his waist, pours water into a basin and kneels to wash his disciples' feet. An act of care and love and intimacy almost beyond belief when you realize that he, Jesus, is the image of God, the exact imprint of his divine nature, the radiance of God's glory, as the writer of the Hebrews tells us. This is our God, hedged in by his beloved of creation's betrayal, washing now humanity's feet. And in so doing enacts kind of a picture, a parable of what he will do on the cross. If we think about that carefully, it's as though everything we know about living is now undone. In the light of this, we must now rebuild our understanding of what it is to be human. A new foundation has been set, and Jesus is the cornerstone. Everything must now look different. This is what it is to be human. You should do just as I have done to you, he tells his followers. This is what we are to do. This is what we are to understand and explore its application and implications together. This is who we are to become.